First of all, thanks everyone for coming. It looks like near full house, so we appreciate it. I see members of the Fumba community. I see CPS here. I see folks from local think tanks. I see my team at CCI. I see Zanzalu people. So it's great to see everyone. We appreciate you coming out. As Abdul said, my name is Kurtis Lockhart. I'm the executive director of the Charter Cities Institute, or CCI. CCI, we are a think tank and an advisory organization based out of Washington, D.C., but most of our work takes place here on the continent. We're all about our vision, our mission. We're all about creating new cities with empowered governance to help lift tens of millions of people out of poverty and into prosperity by harnessing the power of cities to transform and by harnessing really rapid urbanization that's occurring across Africa today. And we're working with several new city projects across the continent to do just this, including our friends here in Fumba Town and CPS. So we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. Just in terms of the agenda for what I'm going to talk about, so I like to always start with setting out the why. Why is this topic of new cities important in this age of urbanization? And then I'm going to move over to talk specifically about CCI and our work and the activities we've been up to here in Zanzibar. So just on the why, right? Why should we care about new cities? We can distill this down into two really simple facts. One is really rapid urbanization occurring across the continent over the course of the next several decades. And the second is that this urbanization is unfolding at really low incomes relative to what's been the case historically in other regions of the world. And so I'll tackle both of these in turn. Just to begin, so there's this major mega trend of urbanization that drives CCI's work. It's an unprecedented and incredibly rapid in scale and speed. This chart here basically suggests, estimates show that by the year 2050, so that's 26 years from now, the world is set to add 2.5 billion urban residents, new urban residents to our cities in a very short period of time. A full 96% of that 2.5 billion is going to be concentrated in low and lower middle income cities. So this is largely a global south phenomenon, and a full 1 billion of that 2.5 billion will be concentrated with new urbanites in African towns and cities. So that's nearly tripling Africa's current urban population. This similar trend holds for more locally here in Zanzibar. Estimates show that Stone Town is growing at about 4% per year. So that means the population of Stone Town is set to double over the next about 17 years or so, which means about 800,000 more people will be added to Stone Town and the surrounding areas in the next less than 2 decades. So just incredibly rapid urbanization. Just to drive this point home, so some of you who were at my ZED talk have seen some of these slides, just apologies for the repetition, but to drive this point home, and I'm realizing you now cannot see the map, so you're just gonna have to trust me, but this shows the distribution of the world's largest cities. Imagine North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia. On the right, in 2025, you see that Asia clearly dominates the urban landscape as of 2025. But there will be very quickly and very shortly a sharp shift. So if we fast forward just 75 years to 2100, we see that Africa will clearly come to dominate the urban landscape in a very short amount of time. What further shows this is this graph here. So on the left, in 2010, only 10 of the world's largest cities, the world's 100 largest cities, were here in Africa. And on the right, we see by the end of the century, 40 of the top largest 100 cities on the planet will be here in Africa. So just again, a stark shift. This aligns closely with demographic trends because by the end of this century, 5 out of 10 babies being born on the planet will be African babies. And so what this tells us is the world's future, humanity's future, is an African future, and that future is an urban future. And it's happening at an unprecedented scale. So this is one of the key reasons that motivates our work here. So onto the second rationale, so the fact that this urbanization is unfolding at significantly lower levels of income per capita than it has historically in other regions. And so just to drive that point home, we see on the left here that the US reached 50% urbanized around the year 1920, and they did so at incomes of $7,500 per person. So fast forward to the late 1970s, in the middle, South Korea hits 50% urbanized in the late 70s at incomes of $4,500 per person. Fast forward to today, and you see on the right that Africa is careening towards 50% urbanized. It's at 43 or 44% at incomes of $1,000 per person. So what this tells us is that while these regions historically have had access to a larger tax base to finance the needed urban infrastructure and city services like water, roads, power, sanitation, that tax base just isn't there for a lot of fast-growing African towns and cities today. And so what this tells us, this reality just tells us very sharply, is there's going to be, almost by necessity, a need to forge partnerships with the private sector in order to get urbanization right across the continent. And this is what a lot of our partnerships with new city projects across the globe is all about. Okay, so that's the why. Now just transitioning over to specifically what CCI is up to here in Zanzibar. So before diving in, I'd like to set the sort of the vision, like what do we ultimately want to accomplish at the end of our time here. Quite simply, we want to, with our partners here on the ground, help transform the Fumba Free Zone into a modern city with a world-class business environment and inclusive, livable communities. Very simply. In essence, transforming Fumba Town into Fumba City so that it can be this place that accommodates the 800,000 people that Stone Town is set to add to its ranks in the next less than 2 decades. So specifically, what is CCI up to achieve this vision? We can call this the 3 Ps. We're up to some policy work, and I'll speak about all of these. We're up to some work attracting private sector firms to the Fumba Peninsula. And then, lastly, cities are not about buildings and infrastructure. Cities are ultimately about people. And so we are working on the people front. So I'll take each of these in turn here. So CCI, we are working with different government actors, and especially with ZIPA, the Zanzibar Investment Promotion Authority, which is why we're very honored to have Alhaj and a couple other folks from ZIPA here tonight. Working with ZIPA to improve the legal and regulatory framework for free zones like the Fumba Zone that we're all currently in tonight, and others across the archipelago, and also more broadly improving the business environment for Zanzibar generally. And in particular, ZIPA has a lot of big opportunities here. There is, and for anybody who's been in Zanzibar for the last couple of years, they've seen these headlines. There's been a ton of momentum and investor interest in Zanzibar for very good reasons. We've seen these types of headlines: 700 investment projects, 300 investment projects in 3 years. But one of the challenges identified has been converting this promised and intended investment into realized and an actual investment. And so one of the things we want to work on hand in hand with our partners at ZIPA is improving upon that conversion rate from intended to actualized investment. And so what have we been doing on this front? Back in February, CCI and the team got contracted with the team at ZIPA to help in tandem draft the strategic plan for the Zanzibar Investment Promotion Authority. The first draft of the strategic plan was just submitted to our good friends at ZIPA, and we're now going through the feedback and review process with them with the end goal to have a finalized and approved strategic plan by Alhaj, end of this month, right? End of this month. You heard it here, folks. So that's first off on our policy work. On the second piece, so we're working, as I said, to attract some private sector firms and mainly focusing on strategic, high quality, big anchor tenants that'll draw in an initial population base that then further growth of Fumba Town and the peninsula can be based off of. So 2 big wins on the attracting private sector firms and big high quality anchor tenants have been registered already here in Fumba. And are our friends from the Indian Institute of Technology here tonight? Are they here? Raise a hand. Okay, we have a IIT representation. Good. So for those of you who don't know, the Indian Institute of Technology Madras, or IIT system writ large, it's basically the MIT of India, the smartest, most talented, best and brightest of the globe's most populous country go to IIT to skill up, to learn, and to become productive members of the labor market. And we have a bunch of these most talented students 5 minutes away from us now here on the Fumba Peninsula, which is amazing, amazing news. And I think the more amazing news for Fumba Town in particular is that the professors and the staff of IIT Madras's Zanzibar campus are all residents now. They're all living here in Fumba Town. We call them neighbors, we call them community members, and so we couldn't be more thrilled to have them here on the peninsula. And this is not all. So there's another very high quality, world-class university that's decided to open up their East Africa hub here in Fumba called the African School of Economics. And so this is Sebastian, you'll hear from him in a couple speaker slots. But the man on the right is Professor Leonard Wanchikon. Leonard is a top world-renowned development economist. He's a professor at Princeton University in the United States. He's also founder and president of the African School of Economics. And I'm proud he's also a board of directors member of the Charter Cities Institute. And I explained this in the ZED talk, but just so everyone knows, above and beyond these things, which are amazing and great, just on a personal front, he's a hero of mine. His story is incredible. He went from a boy born in rural Benin in West Africa to he got engaged in political activism in his youth, and in his 20s, he was imprisoned for 18 years. And so he was a political prisoner, 18 months. 18 months. And so he was a political prisoner. Somehow, after 18 months, he charmed his way out of prison. I have no clue how the Benin penal system works. And he fled across the border to Nigeria. From there, he became a refugee, ultimately and landed up in Canada, in the United States, where he pursued grad school. And ultimately, he became first a professor at Yale University, then New York University, and ultimately where he is today, a tenured professor in development economics at Princeton. And the crazy thing is the speed at which he did this. He went from a literal political prisoner behind bars in Benin to a tenure track professor at Yale in 5 years. He did not have a bachelor's degree. I don't understand. The guy is a dynamo. But above and beyond these feats, I think the legacy, the greatest legacy that he's going to leave behind is his role as founder and president of the African School of Economics. So just a bit of background on ASE. Leonard founded ASE now 10 years ago in 2014, first in his home country of Benin. It went really successful, so he scaled up from there to a second campus in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, and then just last year opened 2 more additional campuses, one in Abuja, Nigeria, and one in Lagos, Nigeria. And so ASE's got a really firm footing in West Africa, and that's not where Leonard wants to limit his ambitions. He's got a Pan-African vision for a university system. And so I knew this at early last year when Mark, our founder and executive director, and myself first traveled here in Fumba Town. This was February 2023. And I was blown away by the magic of Zanzibar when I first came here and the magic of Fumba Town. And so immediately I shot Leonard an email and I said, I think I found your East African hub for ASE. And sure enough, I think it was 2 months later, he was on a plane here to Zanzibar. He met with Sebastian and he met with Honorable Minister of Education here in Zanzibar, both of whom were extremely keen and eager to have such a high quality institution come and set up shop here in Zanzibar. So that's the story. Back in February, we officially got a certificate of incorporation, which we're very, very excited about and proud about, and the funding to start the initial programming, which we're also very excited about. So this is the beginning, but we've hit some crucial milestones, and we're excited to finally commence operations of ASC Zanzibar. Many reasons to be excited. I think the main one is the track record and the quality. So this number is even outdated. It's over 50 students that graduated onto tier one globally ranked universities, PhD programs like Harvard, Princeton, New York University, Penn State, and others. Main thing that we're focused on in terms of this pillar of people is some research that we're conducting as a team in collaboration with some partners, including CPS, of lowering the price point for housing so that this great environment is accessible to more income, greater swath of the income segments than it currently is. I don't have to go into this deeply. Currently, we're looking at different affordable housing schemes across the continent that have shown promise. I think the thing to highlight on this slide is one of the big virtues of being located in a special economic zone is we can look at policies that have showed promise elsewhere. We can come and test them in a zone at a small scale, see which ones work, which ones don't, and then scale up the successes and discard the failures. I think this is one of the key value additions and value propositions of being located in a zone, and we have a great partner in CPS willing to engage in that sort of iteration, which is great. So that's it. That's the 3 Ps that CCI is up to: policy, private sector attraction, and people. And we couldn't be more excited to be here in Zanzibar, helping drive economic development forward. So thank you all so much for coming, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your evening.